Hey guys, Nate with Zebras Racing. Today, as the season's starting, the 2021 snow season is kind of kicking off. There's areas of the country that have snow, areas of the country like us where we're having to drive a little ways to get to snow. Something that's always really good to do is readjust and take some time out there on the trail to figure out where you want your preload. Now, if you took the time last year and you had it dialed, you should not have to play with your preload, especially if you have a Zebras exit shock. That setting is going to be the same. But you have stock shocks or you haven't upgraded, preload is very important. So on your rear track shock, most applications are going to have a threaded collar. So the way I like to set up my sled, I'll be building a new sled this year, is I like to go out and I find a section of trail where it's bumps and whoops and whatnot, and I'll go down that trail section and I'll try to essentially ride like I would normally, maybe slightly faster than normal, and find some of those square edge bumps and make sure that I'm using all of my suspension travel. Now, if I never bottom out and I never feel the bottom of my suspension, chances are you want to back a little bit of preload off to soften up the suspension. Now, if you're bottoming more than you want, my rule of thumb is that if I'm bottoming out on the trail, maybe 10% of the time, that's just perfect for me. I don't want to waste any travel by having the suspension set up too stiff. So adjust your preload by simply adding or taking away preload to that spring. And preload means that you're essentially tensioning the spring or loosening that tension off the spring, or preload to that spring. So as you go stiffer, it's going to give you a higher initial rate of spring rate because you're compressing that spring more, but it'll also give you slightly more final because you're starting with a higher initial rate by having more preload. The other thing is, if you do have a compression adjuster, that's something that you can use to fine tune. So like I said, I like to set up my rear and center track shock so that I'm bottoming out, maybe 10% of the time. When I do hit that big square-edged hole at speed, I want the suspension to go all the way through its travel and not necessarily kick. If it's kicking, usually it means you're bottoming too hard. So once you get that fine-tuned as far as your preload, then you can utilize your compression adjuster. So I'll run mine more on an open setting when I'm touring in and out on the bumps, and then I'll close it down when I get off trail to help mitigate ski lift, and also for jumping or trying to do reverts and things like that, where you want that kind of the front end to stand up and be a little bit more, responsive or stiffer. So utilize those two features. Your preload is always your first adjustment. If the skid is too soft and it's bottoming, don't just close your compression adjuster. Play with your preload first and get that set before you utilize your compression clicker or compression adjuster to fine tune.